Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, staring at the viewscreen with barely contained excitement. After 3 months of traveling through space at faster-than-light speeds, they had finally arrived at the coordinates given to them by the Galactic Council. The station before them was massive, easily 10 times larger than any structure humanity had ever built. It glowed with soft blue lights that pulsed in a rhythm that seemed almost alive. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission," said Lisa Chun, the ship's chief xenolinguist. She adjusted her glasses and looked at her console with intense focus. "They're welcoming us again?" "The translation software is working perfectly." Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. This was it. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with alien civilizations. Not just one, but dozens of them, all part of something called the Galactic Council. When they had received that first message 6 months ago, the entire world had celebrated. Earth was not alone. There were friends waiting for them among the stars. "Commander Parker, how are we looking?" Jake asked. Ben Parker, the military liaison, checked his security readings. "All systems normal, Captain. No weapon signatures from the station. They seem genuinely peaceful." "Good, Lisa, send our response. Tell them Captain Jake Morrison of Earth requests permission to dock." Lisa's fingers flew over her keyboard. Within seconds, a reply came back. "They're assigning us Docking Bay 7. They say a delegation is waiting to meet us." The Endeavour moved slowly toward the station. Jake could see other ships docked at various ports. Some were sleek and silver, others looked like they were made of crystal, and one appeared to be a living organism with wings. His heart raced. Each ship represented a different species, a different world, a different culture. And soon, humanity would join them. The docking procedure took 20 minutes. When the ship finally settled into place and the airlock connected, Jake gathered his team. Besides Lisa and Ben, he brought along 2 security officers and a diplomatic aide. They had practiced this moment 100 times, but now that it was real, Jake felt his palms sweating. The airlock opened with a hiss. The air that came through smelled strange, like flowers mixed with metal. Jake stepped through first, his team following close behind. The corridor was wide and tall, clearly built to accommodate species of different sizes. The walls were smooth and white, and the floor felt soft under his boots. Like walking on firm rubber. At the end of the corridor, a large door opened automatically. Jake and his team entered a vast chamber that took his breath away. The room was circular and enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars above through some kind of transparent material. Around the edges of the room stood dozens of beings, and not one of them looked human. Some were tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Others were short and covered in what looked like feathers or fur. One group had 4 arms and eyes that glowed yellow. Another species seemed to float above the ground without any visible means of support. Jake tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to be amazed. In the center of the room stood a figure that appeared to be the leader. He was taller than Jake, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. He wore robes that shifted colors as he moved, and when he spoke, a small device around his neck translated his words into English. "Welcome, travelers from the newly discovered world. I am Viaran, Senior Counselor of the Galactic Council. We are honored to meet you." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand, a gesture they had decided would be their greeting. Viaran looked at the hand for a moment, then carefully reached out and touched it. His skin felt cool and smooth. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the people of Earth. We are honored and grateful for your welcome." Viaran gestured to the other beings in the room. "This is a historic moment. It has been 3,000 years since a new species joined the Council. Please tell us about your world." Lisa stepped forward and activated a holographic projector. Images of Earth appeared in the air above them. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. The alien delegates leaned forward with interest. Some made sounds that the translators rendered as gasps or expressions of surprise. "Our planet orbits a yellow star," Lisa began. "We call our world Earth. It has 1 moon and is the 3rd planet in our solar system. Our species evolved over millions of years, and we have built a global civilization. She showed images of human cities, farms, and natural wonders. The aliens watched intently, and Jake noticed they seemed impressed by humanity's architecture and technology. So far, everything was going perfectly. Then Lisa moved to the technical data. Our planet's designation in galactic coordinates is Sector 773, Region Epsilon, Stellar Group 12. The star designation is Sol, and the planet is the third orbital body. She pressed a button, and a stream of numbers and coordinates appeared in the air. Standard information that would tell the Council exactly where Earth was located in the galaxy. The moment the coordinates appeared, the room changed. The murmur of interested conversation stopped instantly. Jake saw several aliens freeze in place. Others turned to each other with what looked like alarm. One delegate, a being covered in scales, backed away slowly. Vren's large black eyes went even wider. He stared at the coordinates, then at Lisa, then back at the coordinates. His hand, which had 4 fingers instead of 5, began to tremble. The device he was holding slipped from his grasp and clattered on the floor. "Is something wrong?" Jake asked, feeling a cold knot form in his stomach. Veron said nothing. He just kept staring. An alien to his right, one of the tall, thin ones with shimmering skin, spoke rapidly in a language the translator struggled with. Other delegates began talking at once, their voices rising in pitch and speed. The translator devices produced a chaos of overlapping words. Impossible. The Death World. The Red Planet. They survived? Ben moved closer to Jake, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. "Captain, something's wrong." Lisa looked confused and worried. "I don't understand. Did I make a mistake in the translation?" Veron finally seemed to recover some composure. He held up his hand, and the room gradually fell silent, though Jake could still see fear in the eyes of many delegates. Fear. Why would they be afraid? "You must forgive us," Veron said slowly. His voice, even through the translator, sounded shaken. "We were not expecting. We did not realize ... Realize what?" Jake asked firmly. "What's wrong with our coordinates?" An older alien stepped forward. She had gray skin and walked with a slight limp, leaning on a staff that glowed at the top. Her species had 3 eyes, and all of them were fixed on Jake with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Young Captain," she said, her voice gravelly and ancient. "Do your people have other names for your world? Names from your history or your languages?" Jake glanced at Lisa, who nodded. "Yes, we have many names in different languages. The Romans called it Terra. Some ancient cultures called it Gaia. There are dozens of names throughout our history." The old alien closed all 3 of her eyes. Several other delegates made gestures that looked like prayers or protective words. Veron took a step back, and Jake noticed his legs were shaking. "Terra," Veron whispered. The words seemed to echo in the chamber despite the soft acoustics. "You come from Terra, the Tomb World, the Death World, the planet that kills." Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "What are you talking about?" "Earth is our home. It's a beautiful planet full of life." "Full of life that kills," said the old alien. "Full of predators and poisons and disasters. We have records, young Captain." "Old records." "Very old records. Records of what?" Ben demanded. Veron looked at Jake with something in his eyes that looked like pity mixed with terror. 50,000 years ago, the Council sent expeditions to your world. We thought it would be a perfect colony. A beautiful blue planet with abundant water and a thick atmosphere. 7 different species tried to settle there. "And?" Jake asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. "They all died," Veron said quietly. "Every single colony failed. Some lasted months, others only weeks. The survivors who escaped told stories of a world that fought them at every turn. They spoke of storms that could destroy cities, of microscopic organisms that ate through their bodies, of creatures that hunted them with intelligence and patience. They called it many names, but the one that stuck was Terra, the world that buries the foolish." Lisa shook her head. "That's impossible. Our planet is perfectly habitable. We've lived there for over 200,000 years. Exactly, said the old alien. She opened her eyes again and looked at the humans with something that might have been respect or might have been horror. You lived there. You evolved there. You survived Terra. The room was completely silent now. Every alien eye was fixed on the small human delegation. Jake suddenly felt very aware of how different they looked, how strange they must seem to these beings. Varn spoke again, and his voice was barely above a whisper. Jake had to strain to hear him. There is an old saying in the council, an ancient warning passed down through the generations. If Terra ever spawns thinking beings, if the Death World ever births a species intelligent enough to reach the stars, then the galaxy will change forever. For those who... Ambassador Kate Sullivan had not slept well in 3 days. The small quarters assigned to her on the council station were comfortable enough, but every time she closed her eyes she saw the faces of those alien delegates. The fear, the shock. The way they had looked at her and her fellow humans like they were monsters. The council had been polite since that first meeting. Too polite. They offered food, accommodations, and diplomatic courtesies. But they refused to explain their reaction. Every time Kate asked about the Death World or the old records, the council representatives changed the subject or gave vague answers. It was driving her crazy. Kate was Earth's top diplomat, chosen specifically for this mission because of her ability to negotiate and build trust. She had spent 20 years resolving conflicts between nations, religions, and political factions. But nothing in her training had prepared her for this. How do you negotiate with people who are terrified of you just because of where you were born? She was sitting in her quarters reviewing her notes for the 100th time when her communicator beeped. It was Chris Hayes, her security officer. Ambassador, you need to come to the meeting room. We have a visitor. Kate grabbed her jacket and hurried down the corridor. The station was quieter than usual. She had noticed that whenever she walked through the common areas, aliens would stop talking and watch her pass. Some would move to the other side of the corridor. Yesterday, a group of small furry aliens had actually run away when they saw her coming. Chris was waiting outside the meeting room, looking as tired as Kate felt. He was a former Marine, tough and professional, but even he seemed shaken by the situation. Who's the visitor? Kate asked. Says his name is Zix. He's a council archivist. He wants to talk to you about Earth. Kate's heart jumped. Finally, someone willing to give them answers. She entered the meeting room and saw a being unlike any she had met so far. Zix was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to reflect light like a mirror. He had no visible mouth, and his head was smooth and elongated. When he communicated, words appeared on a small screen hovering in front of him. Ambassador Sullivan, the screen displayed. Thank you for seeing me. I apologize for the secrecy, but what I have to show you is not common knowledge. Kate sat down across from him. Chris stood by the door, alert and watchful. I appreciate you coming. We're very confused about the council's reaction to us. Zix's screen flickered. I imagine you are. The truth about Terra has been kept quiet for thousands of years. Most species in the council only know fragments of the story. But I am an archivist. My species has perfect memory. We never forget anything we see or hear. It is both a gift and a curse. What happened 50,000 years ago? Kate asked directly. Why did those colonies fail? Come with me, Zix wrote on his screen. I will show you. But I warn you, what you see may be disturbing. Kate and Chris followed Zix through a series of corridors they had never seen before. They went down 3 levels, into sections of the station that seemed older and less maintained. Finally, they entered a massive room filled with crystalline structures that glowed with soft light. Each crystal was a different color, and images moved inside them like living photographs. The archive, Zix explained. Every significant event in council history is stored here, including the Terra expeditions. He moved to a large blue crystal and touched it with his long fingers. The crystal brightened, and images began to play in the air above it. Kate watched, fascinated and horrified. The first image showed a beautiful planet from space. Blue and green and white, it looked exactly like Earth. Ships approached it, sleek vessels from civilizations long gone. The next image showed aliens in protective suits exploring forests and beaches. They looked happy, excited. Then the images changed. Kate saw storms that covered entire continents, with lightning strikes that destroyed buildings in seconds. She saw floods that swept away settlements. She saw earthquakes that opened the ground and swallowed structures whole. The aliens tried to rebuild again and again, but the planet seemed to fight them at every turn. The first expedition lasted 6 months, Zix's screen explained. They thought the bad weather was just temporary. They were wrong. The images continued. Kate saw microscopic organisms, enlarged many times, attacking alien cells. The Council scientists had no defense against Earth's bacteria and viruses. Entire colonies died from infections that their immune systems could not handle. Some aliens died from things as simple as a common cold. The second expedition brought better medicine, Zix wrote. But they did not understand Terra's biology. Everything on your world is aggressive, competitive, fighting for survival. Kate watched as images showed aliens being attacked by Earth's wildlife. Bears that seemed impossibly large and strong. Big cats that hunted with terrifying intelligence. Snakes with venom that dissolved alien flesh. Even the plants were dangerous, with thorns and poisons that the aliens could not predict. But the worst part, Zix continued, was that Terra never stopped. There was no safe season, no safe zone. In the poles, they froze. In the equator, they baked. In the forests, predators hunted them. In the oceans, storms drowned them. The planet itself seemed to want them dead. Chris watched the images with a grim expression. Our ancestors lived through all of that, he said quietly. Yes, Zix wrote. That is what terrifies the Council. 7 different species tried to colonize Terra. All of them were advanced civilizations with technology superior to yours today. All of them failed. But somehow, a primitive species of apes survived. More than survived. You thrived. You conquered the death world. Kate felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride in her species' resilience. Sadness for the aliens who had died on her world. And worry about what this meant for humanity's future in the galaxy. Show me the rest, she said. .ZYX touched another crystal. This one read. More images appeared. These showed the aftermath of the failed colonies. Alien survivors, traumatized and broken, giving testimony to Council investigators. Kate could not hear their words, but she could see the terror in their faces. One image showed an alien with 3 arms covered in bandages. According to the subtitle, he was the last survivor of the 5th expedition. He had hidden in a cave for 2 months, eating emergency rations while something hunted him outside. When the rescue ship finally came, he had lost his mind. He spent the rest of his life in a medical facility, never fully recovering. The Council declared Terra off limits after that, Zix explained. It was classified as a Class 12 death world. The highest danger rating we have. Only 3 other planets in the known galaxy have that classification, and all of them are barren wastelands with no life at all. Terra was unique. Beautiful but deadly. Kate leaned back in her chair. So when we showed up, alive and healthy, from a planet that killed every other species that tried to live there, The Council realized something unprecedented had happened, Zix wrote. A sentient species had evolved on a Class 12 death world. Something that should have been impossible. And if your species could survive Terra, what else could you survive? Chris crossed his arms. They're afraid of us. Terrified, Zix confirmed. Because the records also contain predictions. Old predictions made by Council scientists after the last Terra expedition failed. He touched a green crystal. New images appeared showing what looked like scientific reports and charts. Kate could not read the alien writing, but Zix translated. The scientists studied what it would take for a species to survive on Terra. They calculated the necessary traits. Strong bones to handle the high gravity. Powerful immune systems to fight the aggressive microorganisms. High pain tolerance to survive injuries. persistence and endurance to outlast predators, intelligence and adaptability to handle the constant environmental changes. Kate was beginning to understand. And they concluded? They concluded that any species evolving on Terra would become the most formidable life form in the galaxy. They wrote, if Terra ever produces sentient life, they will be survivors beyond measure. They will see dangers we cannot imagine as normal. They will possess physical capabilities that will make them seem superhuman to other species. They will have a determination born from fighting their own planet every single day. And most terrifying of all, they will see themselves as normal, having no idea how dangerous they truly are. The room fell silent. Kate stared at the images floating in the air. She thought about Earth, about human history, about all the wars and disasters and plagues that humanity had survived. She had always thought of Earth as home, as a nurturing mother planet. But from the Council's perspective, Earth was a nightmare world that had forged humanity in fire and blood. There's more, Zix wrote. His screen flickered, and Kate got the impression he was hesitant. The final warning in the records. Show me. Zix touched a black crystal, and one last image appeared. It was text, written in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. If the children of Terra ever reach the stars, the galaxy will never be the same. Pray they bring peace. For if they bring war, no force in the known universe will stop them. Kate stood up slowly. She walked to the image and touched it, her hand passing through the hologram. This was written 50,000 years ago. Yes, and every member of the Council knows about this. General Don Cooper sat in the command center deep below Earth's surface, staring at the data streaming across multiple screens. The information coming from the Council station was disturbing, to say the least. His people were being treated like biological weapons, feared for simply existing. And now there was talk of quarantine or worse. General, Dr. Rodriguez is here, said an aide. Emma Rodriguez entered the room carrying a tablet and looking exhausted. She was Earth's leading expert in comparative biology, and for the past 2 days she had been analyzing every bit of information the Council had shared about their species. What she had found was keeping her up at night? Tell me something good, Emma, Don said. Though he knew from her expression that good news was not coming, Emma sat down and activated her tablet. A holographic display appeared showing 2 figures side by side. One was a human, the other was an alien species called the Calvari, who made up the largest portion of Council membership. I've been comparing human physiology to average galactic standards. General, we need to understand what they see when they look at us. Go ahead. Emma pointed to the skeletal system first. Human bones are 3 to 4 times denser than the average Council species. The Calvari, for example, have bones more similar to bird bones on Earth, light and hollow. It lets them move quickly but makes them fragile. A fall that would give a human a bruise could shatter a Calvari's leg. Dan frowned. So we're tougher. That's not exactly terrifying. By itself, no. But it's not just bones. Look at muscle density. The hologram changed to show muscle structure. Humans have significantly more muscle mass and strength for our size. A human child could overpower an adult Calvari. An average human adult is as strong as their elite warriors. You're saying we're naturally stronger than most species? Much stronger. And it gets worse. Look at this. Emma brought up data on pain tolerance. Human pain receptors are less sensitive than most galactic species. What we consider mild discomfort would be agony for them. We can function with injuries that would incapacitate them. We've documented human soldiers continuing to fight with broken bones, severe burns, and other traumatic injuries. To the Council, that's not bravery. That's terrifying. Don was starting to understand. He thought about human history, about soldiers and athletes pushing through pain that should have stopped them. He had always thought of it as determination. But to an alien species with more sensitive pain responses, humans would seem almost unstoppable. What about environmental factors? He asked. Emma switched to a new display showing Earth's atmospheric composition. Earth's oxygen level is 21%. For most council species, anything above 15% causes oxygen toxicity. They would get sick breathing our air for more than a few hours. Meanwhile, we complain if oxygen drops below 19%. So our planet's air is poisonous to them? Not poisonous exactly, but dangerous. And it's not just oxygen. Earth's gravity is 1.0. The average council world has gravity between 0.7 and 0.8. To them, Earth feels crushing. They would be exhausted just walking around. Their bones might break from their own weight. Dan leaned back in his chair. We evolved in conditions they consider extreme. Exactly. And consider the implications. Humans can operate in a wider range of environments than any other known species. We can survive in deserts where temperatures reach 50 degrees Celsius. We can work in Arctic conditions at minus 40 degrees. We can climb mountains where oxygen is scarce. We can dive deep underwater. The range of conditions humans consider livable is vastly greater than galactic norms. Emma pulled up another chart. Then there's our immune system. General human immune systems are incredibly aggressive. They have to be because Earth is full of pathogens. Bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi. Our bodies fight microscopic wars every single day. Most council species evolved on cleaner worlds with fewer diseases. Their immune systems are comparatively weak, which means we're walking biohazard suits. The bacteria we carry harmlessly in our bodies could kill them. Remember the old records from the Terra expeditions? Many aliens died from infections. They weren't ready for Earth's microscopic life. Dan thought about the implications for trade, diplomacy, and cooperation. Every human would need to be decontaminated before meeting with most species. Every human ship would need extensive sterilization protocols. The logistics alone were staggering. Is there anything about us that isn't terrifying to them? Don asked. Emma hesitated. Our diet? Our diet? Yes, humans are omnivores. We eat plants and meat. But we also eat things that are toxic to most species. Capsaicin, the chemical that makes peppers spicy, deadly to most council species. Theobromine in chocolate, poison, alcohol, toxic. We consume these things for pleasure. We developed food specifically designed to cause pain because we enjoy it. Don almost laughed. They're afraid of our food? They're afraid that we evolved to eat poison and call it seasoning. Think about it from their perspective. What kind of death world produces creatures that need to eat toxic substances to survive? But we don't need them. We just like them, which makes it worse. We eat poison for fun. The absurdity of it all was almost too much. Don stood up and walked to the window overlooking the command center. Dozens of people were working below, coordinating communications with the council station, analyzing data, preparing contingency plans. All of them were humans. All of them were, according to this analysis, super soldiers by galactic standards without even trying to be. What about our endurance? Don asked, remembering something he had read. Emma nodded. I was getting to that. Humans are persistence hunters. Before we developed tools and weapons, our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can run for hours. We can walk for days. Our cardiovascular system is designed for endurance. Most council species are sprinters. They're fast for short distances but tire quickly. A human marathon runner could literally chase most species until they died from exhaustion. That's how we hunted. We just followed things until they gave up? Yes, it's called persistence hunting, and it's terrifying from an ecological perspective. Imagine being prey that can outrun the predator, but knowing the predator will never stop following you. It will track you for hours or days until you can't run anymore. Then it kills you. That's what humans did. That's in our evolutionary DNA. Don felt a chill. He had never thought of humans as persistence predators before, but it made sense. Humans did not give up. When they wanted something, they pursued it relentlessly. That trait had built civilizations, created art and science, and explored the unknown. But from an alien perspective, it was the behavior of an unstoppable hunter, A communication came through on Dan's console. It was from Ambassador Kate Sullivan on the council station. He activated the channel and Kate's face appeared on the screen. She looked worried. "General, we have a situation. The council is in emergency session. They're debating humanity's status and it's not going well. Half of them want to quarantine Earth immediately. The other half wants to wait for more information." "What kind of information?" Don asked. "They want to see how we compare militarily. There's a faction called the Preservation Front that's pushing for a demonstration. They want to see if we're as dangerous as the old predictions say." Emma moved closer to the screen. "Ambassador, I've been analyzing the data. Humans are physically superior to most council species in almost every measurable way. If it comes to a military confrontation, we would have significant advantages." Kate shook her head. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of. If we show them we're militarily strong, it confirms their fears. But if we show weakness, the Preservation Front will use it to argue we're lying about our capabilities." Dan thought quickly. "What if we're honest? Show them our capabilities, but also show them our restraint? Humans are strong, but we choose not to use that strength to harm others. That has to count for something." "I hope you're right," Kate said. "Because I just received word that a colony world is under attack by unknown forces. The council is debating whether to ask for our help. It might be a test." "A test?" "To see what we do when given military power. Do we help them, or do we use it as an opportunity to prove we're the predators they fear?" Don looked at Emma, then back at Kate. "If they ask for help, we help them. No hesitation. No conditions. We show them that humans fight to protect, not to conquer." "That's what I was hoping you'd say. But General, prepare our people. If this is a test, we need to pass it. The future of humanity depends on it." The communication ended. Don turned to Emma. "Keep analyzing the data. I need to know everything about how we compare to council species. Strengths, weaknesses, everything." Emma nodded and left. Don sat back down and pulled up tactical displays. If Earth was going to send military forces to help the council, they needed to be ready. But they also needed to be careful. One wrong move, one excessive show of force, and humanity would confirm every fear the council had. Across the galaxy, the council convened in their chamber. Speaker Thren stood at the center, addressing the assembly. "The question before us is clear. Do we accept humanity into the council, quarantine them, or eliminate them?" A delegate from the Preservation Front stood. His name was Commander. Colonel Amy Mitchell checked her tactical display one more time as her ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The colony world of Sanctum 7 appeared on the view screen, a green and brown planet surrounded by the flashing lights of weapon fire. Even from this distance, she could see the battle was not going well for the defenders. "Status report," Amy said calmly. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Nick Torres, read from his console. 15 enemy ships attacking the colony. Council Defense Fleet has 8 ships remaining, all damaged. They're trying to evacuate civilians from the surface, but the enemy is targeting the evacuation transports." Amy felt anger rise in her chest. Attacking civilians. That was unacceptable. She opened a channel to the other 2 human ships in her small fleet. "All units, this is Colonel Mitchell. Rules of engagement are as follows. Protect the civilians first, engage enemy forces second, minimize collateral damage. Show them what humans do when someone needs help." "Copy that, Colonel," came the responses. Amy's force consisted of 3 ships and 500 Marines. By council standards, it was tiny. The council had expected Earth to send a massive fleet, dozens of ships and thousands of soldiers. Instead, Earth sent a small, fast response team. Some council members had been insulted by the size of the force. Amy intended to show them why size did not matter. "Lieutenant Torres, take us in. Target the enemy ships harassing the evacuation transports." Weapons free, the human ships accelerated toward the battle. Amy watched as the enemy vessels noticed their arrival. The enemy ships were larger than the human vessels, and according to intelligence reports, they were well armed. The Council ships had tried to maintain distance, using long-range weapons and defensive tactics. That was the standard way of fighting in space. Where battles happened across thousands of kilometers, humans fought differently. All ships close to combat range. "I want us in their faces," Amy ordered. Nick looked at her with concern. "Colonel, that's against standard Council tactics. They'll think we're crazy." "Good, let them think that." The human ships dove toward the enemy formation. Warning alarms blared as enemy weapons locked onto them, but Amy's pilots were the best Earth had. They dodged and weaved, moving in patterns that seemed random but were carefully calculated. The enemy ships were trying to track them, but the human vessels were smaller and faster. Amy's ship came alongside an enemy cruiser that had been firing on a civilian transport. At this range, the enemy ship looked enormous, easily 5 times the size of Amy's vessel. But size meant nothing if you could not hit your target. "Fire all weapons." "Aim for their weapon systems," Amy commanded. Her ship unleashed a barrage of kinetic rounds and energy weapons. The attack was precise and devastating. The enemy cruiser's weapons exploded in a series of bright flashes. The ship was still functional but could no longer fire. Amy's ship was already moving on to the next target. Before the enemy could respond, this pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships darted in close, struck hard, and moved away before the enemy could retaliate. It was aggressive and dangerous, the complete opposite of Council tactics. But it was working. On the Council command ship, Observer Marin watched the human vessels with his large eyes wide in disbelief. He had been assigned to document human military capabilities, and what he was seeing defied everything he knew about space combat. "They're fighting at point-blank range," his assistant said. "They'll be destroyed." But they were not being destroyed. The humans moved with precision and speed that seemed impossible. Their ships pulled maneuvers that would have crushed most pilots under the GIF forces. Yet the humans kept fighting, kept moving, kept pressing the attack. "Get me a reading on their internal gravity compensation," Moran ordered. The results came back, and Moran felt his blood run cold. The human ships were pulling maneuvers that generated 8 to 9 times standard gravity. The humans inside those ships were experiencing forces that would kill most species. Yet they fought on as if it were normal, because to them it was. They had evolved under high gravity. Their bodies could handle forces that would break other species. It gave them an advantage that no amount of technology could match. On Amy's ship, the crew worked with smooth efficiency despite the extreme conditions. Every turn, every acceleration pushed them back into their seats with crushing force. But human bodies were built for this. Their strong bones did not break. Their dense muscles kept blood flowing to their brains. They remained conscious and alert while any other species would have passed out. "Colonel, the enemy is trying to retreat," Nick reported. Amy checked her display. The enemy ships had realized they were outmatched. They were pulling back, trying to create distance. But Amy had seen them targeting civilians. She was not inclined to let them escape easily. "Pursuit course, but do not destroy them. Disable their engines and let them go. We're here to save people, not rack up kills." Her ships chased down 3 enemy vessels, precisely targeting their propulsion systems. The enemy ships drifted helplessly in space, their crews unharmed but unable to fight or flee. It was a message. Humans could have killed them but chose not to, with the enemy neutralized. Amy turned her attention to the surface. "Deploy marine units. I want boots on the ground helping with the evacuation." The human ships moved into orbit and drop pods launched toward the surface. Inside one pod, Sergeant Sophie Blake checked her medical gear. She was a combat medic, trained to treat injuries under fire. She had no idea if her training would work on alien biology, but she was about to find out. The pods hit the ground hard. Sophie and her team emerged in a colony city under attack. Buildings were burning, and civilians were running in panic. Most were Calvari, the bird-like species that made up most of the colony's population. They looked at the humans with fear and hope mixed together. "Medical station, set up here," Sophie ordered. Her team moved quickly, establishing a triage area. Wounded aliens were brought to them, suffering from burns, broken bones, and blast injuries. Sophie approached the first patient, a young Calvari with a shattered wing. She had studied alien anatomy on the trip here, but theory was different from practice. The Calvari looked at her with 3 eyes full of pain and fear. "It's okay," Sophie said gently, even though she did not know if the alien understood her. "I'm going to help you." She examined the wing carefully. The bones were lighter than human bones, more fragile. She had to be gentle. Using techniques adapted from treating birds on Earth, she set the wing and applied a splint. The Calvari made a sound that her translator registered as gratitude. For the next 3 hours, Sophie and her team treated dozens of wounded aliens. They adapted their techniques on the fly, learning alien biology through necessity. Some treatments worked perfectly, others required improvisation. But they saved lives, and that was what mattered. Meanwhile, human Marines spread through the city, helping with evacuation. They carried civilians who could not walk, cleared rubble from collapsed buildings, and provided security against remaining enemy forces. The Calvari civilians watched in amazement as humans lifted weights that would require machinery for most species, moved through smoke and fire without protective gear that other species needed, and worked for hours without rest. One group of Marines found a building about to collapse with a family trapped inside. The structure was too unstable for most species to enter safely, but the Marines did not hesitate. They reinforced the entrance with portable supports and went in. The family was 4 levels up, trapped by debris. Sergeant Carlos Martinez led his team up the stairs. Each step was dangerous, with the building groaning and shifting around them. But they kept moving. They found the family huddled in a corner, a parent and 3 children, all terrified. "We've got you," Carlos said. He and his team cleared the debris blocking their exit. The parent was too injured to walk, so Carlos picked them up. The alien was light to him, barely any weight at all. The children clung to his teammates as they made their way back down. They emerged from the building just as it collapsed behind them. The family was safe, shaken, but alive. The parent looked at Carlos with eyes full of tears and said something in their language. The translator rendered it simply, "Thank you." Observer Moran recorded everything. He watched humans fight with aggression and precision. He watched them treat wounded with care and gentleness. He watched them risk their lives to save strangers from a species they had just met. His report would be thorough, but he already knew what it would say. After 6 hours, the battle was over. The enemy had fled. The civilians were safe. The colony was damaged but intact. Amy stood on the surface, looking at the city. Her forces had suffered casualties, 40% wounded but none killed. By galactic standards, those were heavy losses. But they had saved thousands of lives. Council ships landed nearby, and officials emerged to survey the damage. Speaker Thren approached Amy, his expression unreadable. "Colonel Mitchell, your tactics were reckless. You endangered your people needlessly." Amy met his gaze. "With respect, Speaker, my people knew the risks. We came here to save lives. That's what we did. You could have used safer methods, long-range engagement, orbital bombardment of enemy positions, and risk of civilian casualties? No, humans do not sacrifice innocence for tactical convenience." The council chamber on Concordia was more crowded than Ambassador Kate Sullivan had ever seen it. Representatives from every member species had gathered for this emergency summit. The air was thick with tension and the mixed sense of dozens of different alien physiologies. Kate stood at the center of the chamber, flanked by Captain Jake Morrison and Premier Alex Wright, Earth's elected world leader. Behind them stood a small honor guard, including Colonel Amy Mitchell, who had arrived just hours before Kate could feel hundreds of eyes on her. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with fear, and a few with what might have been hope. The fate of humanity would be decided today. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Sanctum 7, 3 weeks of debates, reports, and secret meetings. Now it was time for a final decision. Speaker Thren stood at the center podium, his aged features showing the strain of recent events. This council convenes to determine the status of the species known as humans, originating from the planet Terra, also called Earth. We have reviewed all evidence, all reports, all historical records. Now we must choose. A door at the far end of the chamber opened, and Commander Vala entered with a group of supporters. He was the leader of the Preservation Front, the faction that wanted humanity eliminated or contained. Vala walked with confidence, clearly believing he had the votes to win. "Before we vote," Vala announced, "I must present new evidence. Evidence that proves humanity is too dangerous to exist free in the galaxy." Kate's heart sank. What new evidence could he have? She glanced at Jake, who looked equally concerned. Vala activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, showing human history. Wars, weapons, destruction. Kate recognized scenes from World War II, the atomic bombings, the Holocaust. Then came images from other conflicts throughout human history. The Crusades, the Mongol conquests, colonial genocides, modern terrorism. "Behold the true nature of humanity," Vala said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "A species that has spent its entire existence at war with itself. They have developed thousands of ways to kill. They have committed atrocities that would horrify any civilized species. They have nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times. And now we consider welcoming them into our peaceful community?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Kate felt panic rising. She had known human history would be an issue, but seeing it presented like this, stripped of context and understanding, made it look monstrous. "These images are from their own records," Vala continued. "They do not deny this history. They cannot. This is who they are. Products of Terra, the Death World. Warriors and killers by nature. If we allow them to spread, our children will live in fear. Eventually, they will dominate us all." Vala sat down, looking satisfied. Speaker Thren turned to Kate. "Ambassador Sullivan, you may respond." Kate stood, her legs feeling weak but her resolve firm. She had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, the weight of responsibility was crushing. The future of 8 billion humans rested on what she said next. "Commander Vala is correct," Kate began, and shocked silence fell over the chamber. "The images he showed are real. Those atrocities happened. We do not deny our history. We do not hide from it. Because that history is part of what made us who we are today." She activated her own display. New images appeared. A human child being born. Students in a classroom. Scientists working together. Artists creating beauty. Volunteers helping disaster victims. Doctors treating the sick. Yes, we have committed terrible acts. But we have also created beauty, pursued knowledge, and shown compassion. We are not defined by our worst moments alone. We are defined by what we chose to do after those moments. Kate walked to the center of the chamber, addressing all the delegates. "You fear us because we survived Terra. You fear us because we are strong. But let me tell you what surviving Terra really taught us. It taught us that life is precious because it is fragile. Every human child who grows up on Earth learns that the world can be dangerous, that survival requires cooperation, that we are stronger together than apart." She gestured to Jake. "Captain Morrison made first contact with you in peace, though he could have come in war. We could have hidden our home's location, but we shared it freely. We could have kept our technology secret, but we offered to share it." Then she gestured to Amy. "Colonel Mitchell risked her life and the lives of her soldiers to save people from a species she had just met. She could have used overwhelming force, but she chose restraint. Her medics treated your wounded with the same care they would give their own." Kate's voice grew stronger. "You see our capacity for violence and call us dangerous. But you ignore our capacity for growth, for change, for choosing a better path? Yes, we come from a death world. Yes, we are physically capable. But we are also philosophers, artists, and dreamers. We are a species that looked at the stars and wanted to reach them not to conquer, but to explore. Not to dominate, but to understand." Premier Alex Wright stepped forward. "May I speak?" he asked quietly. Thren nodded. "The Council recognizes Earth's premier. Alex was older than Kate, with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen much suffering. He had been elected because people trusted him, and now Kate hoped the council would trust him too. I want to tell you about a dark time in our history, Alex began. There was a war on Earth, a terrible war that killed millions. We developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We came very close to destroying ourselves completely. I know because my grandfather survived one of those weapons. He saw his city turn to ash in an instant. The chamber was completely silent. Alex continued, "When the war ended, we had a choice. We could continue on the path of destruction or we could choose differently. We chose peace. We chose cooperation. We chose to be better than our worst fears." He looked directly at Vala. "You show our darkest moments and say this is who we are, but you do not show what came after. You do not show how we learned from those mistakes. You do not show how we built a global community from the ashes of conflict. We are not perfect. We still struggle. We still fail sometimes. But we never stop trying to be better." Alex turned to address the full council. "My grandfather used to say something I never forgot. He said the measure of a person is not whether they fall down, but whether they get back up. Humanity has fallen many times. We have made terrible mistakes. But we always get back up. We always try to do better. That is the true legacy of Terra. Not that it made us strong, but that it made us persistent in the pursuit of something better." Vala stood again, anger clear in his features. "Beautiful words, but words are cheap. The threat remains. They are too dangerous." "Then let me address the threat directly," Kate said. She pulled up more data. "You fear we will dominate the galaxy because of our physical advantages. But consider this. We have known about these advantages for only 3 weeks. For our entire history until now, we thought we were normal. We did not know we were unusually strong or resilient. We did not know our planet was classified as a death world." She let that sink in. "This means that everything we accomplished without knowing we had any special advantages. Our art, our science, our philosophy, our compassion, these were not side effects of physical strength. They were choices we made as a species. We chose to be more than survivors. We chose to be builders and dreamers." Kate turned to face Vala directly. "You staged the attack on Sanctum 7, didn't you? It was a test. You wanted to see if we were monsters? Well, you got your answer. We are not monsters. We are people who will risk everything to protect others, even strangers who fear us." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Vala's face showed surprise and anger. "That is a serious accusation without proof. Observer Moran's report included encrypted communications he intercepted," Kate said calmly. "Intelligence provided by archivist Zix helped decode them. We have proof." Thren held up his hand for silence. "Commander Vala, is this true?" Vala stood silent for a long moment, then straightened proudly. "Yes, I arranged the attack. But my intentions were pure. I needed to show the Council what humanity truly is. And I succeeded. We all saw how they fought. Aggressive, relentless, without fear or mercy. Without mercy." Amy spoke up, her voice hard. "We disabled enemy ships instead of destroying them. We saved their crews. We treated wounded enemies with the same care as civilians. If that is your definition of no mercy, then we have very different understandings of the word." The delegates began talking among themselves. The revelation of Vala's deception had clearly shifted the mood in the chamber. But Kate knew it was not enough. Fear was a powerful emotion, and it would take more than exposing one conspiracy to overcome 50,000 years of legend. "Council members," Kate said, raising her voice to be heard. "I understand your fear. I truly do. We are different from you in ways that seem frightening. But differences do not have to lead to conflict. We offer you partnership. We offer to share our medical knowledge, which could save millions of lives. We offer to share our technology. We offer our strength to protect those who need protection. We ask only for a chance to prove ourselves. An elderly delegate stood, the same one who had first spoken of Terra's legend. What guarantee can you offer? How can we trust that you will not use your advantages against us?